Hi, folks. Welcome, Jimmy and Stuart. I'm Norrie. Welcome to Hat Friday. Jimmy's union says he doesn't have to wear a hat because he's got a Mohican. So your
cultural
shop,
differences mean Indians don't wear bonnets.
Your shop, Stuart, threatened me with a strike if I forced you to wear a hat. We've got quite a bit today, guys. We're going to have a chat about Nicholas Sturgeon's presser. We're going to leave that till last. I've forgotten, haven't I? Oh, yeah. And Jimmy wants to have a wee pop at the football authorities. And I'd like to mention Brexit. If you remember Brexit, boys, that's... Does that spring to mind at all?
Oh, that's the B word.
Yeah, the B word. So, Jimmy, you've got a couple of things, spin-offs almost from the football farrago that's happening at the moment.
Yeah, the football's a strange one. They're chomping at the bit to get it started up again in England, mostly because the English Premier League would have to pay about 750 million back to BT and Sky Sports if they don't show games. But I've kind of come to the conclusion, mate, that this might be a good thing for England. Not that they start up football, but that football doesn't start up, and they see the reason why. I can't see a lot of these foreign players coming back to these shores. Britain, England particularly, has dealt with coronavirus terribly bad in the eyes of the rest of the world, and we don't see that because our media don't report it. I saw a little something this morning where it was basically 21 Twitter messages that somebody had packaged together and popped onto Facebook to give you a wee look at how other countries are seeing us. And, you know, people's parents are worried that they're still in the UK. And the one that there was a few places like Brazil, which is becoming a hotspot, but Brazilian people are being urged to go home by their parents because it's worse here already. But the one that really stuck out was the Mayor of Bergamo in Italy, because we all know that was the worst region in Italy. ITV News in particular were delighted to get cameras right into an ICU to show us just how badly they were coping. Well, the Mayor of Bergamo had his two daughters evacuated from London because he reckoned that they'd be better off in the worst part of Italy than in the UK. So I think football players will say no, we ain't coming back, and that would maybe be the wake-up call that England needs.
Stuart, you read quite a bit of the foreign press. What are you picking up?
Don't get me started. The word is English exceptionalism. We all know what it's about. It was like yesterday. What was it about? I know the last couple of days, the row was about Nicholas Sturgeon had suggested face coverings, not face masks, which, as it happens, right across Europe, all the big countries in Europe were recommending the same thing. Down in England, it was almost like a case of, well, if Europe's recommending it, we're not doing it. They are so arrogant about themselves. They will actually allow people to die for their ideology.
Well, let's be fair. Boris did kind of slip a bit yesterday. Oh, my green screen's gone funny.
You can't have that.
Aye, shocking. I'll need to fix it. So he basically said that it wasn't that bad an idea.
Yeah, which totally and utterly confused Per David Mundell, who had spent a couple of days saying what a shocking idea it was that Nicholas Sturgeon had this idea and had the temerity to suggest it. And now that Boris is hinting at it, David's completely confused, and I take it he's going to stuck his head down a rabbit warren somewhere in Dumfriesshire, and he's just going into hiding for the weekend.
Well, that man is so unself-aware. I mean, what politician actually can he understand? It's a recommendation. You know, if you're in close proximity to people in a situation you can't avoid, stick your scarf around your gob and your nose. And that confuses him.
Apparently, people in Gretna that happen to work in Carlisle, they're carrying a prescription and they've missed going into the chemist in Gretna, so they pop into the chemist in Carlisle to pick up their prescription, and they forget they're going to have to pay there. Aye, right.
Aye.
So
Because
that's
that's
all
the kind,
right.
that's
Right.
the
I
kind of
see.
mistake you're bound to make. Aye,
Oh, aye.
I'll just forget to go into the chemist here because it'll cost me £9 down the street.
Aye. They know fine they're going to pay for it. I mean, people at that border know exactly what the difference is.
But borderers, and remember, I'm basically a borderer. I was brought up there.
Mm-hmm.
I think stoic's a kind way to put it. They don't change their minds readily.
Do you know that down in Coldstream, you know, the kids go to primary school in Cornhill, just over the bridge. And Billy Kay, that wonderful supporter of our Scots tongue, had a wee show on TV last week. And they lined up these primary school kids from Coldstream and Cornhill, and they're only a mile apart. And the language was completely different. These unionists the kid themselves on. They think there's no difference. Yes, there's an enormous difference.
Well, I find it really quite amusing because there was stuff floating about yesterday. In fact, talking about overseas, Spain looks like it's going to have different rules for different regions of Spain. And I think it was Dominic Raab also suggested it might be quite a good idea to have different rules for different areas in Britain, you know, isolate hotspots, etc. And then the Tory party's suggesting that the Shetlands or the Orkneys could be used as a testing ground for what they want, which is getting rid of lockdown. But of course, Scotland, can he do anything different at all?
No, we're not allowed to. We're not clever enough to do anything different. It's all right if it's under instruction from Whitehall, because at that point they'll give us an instruction manual, and we've got a high commissioner, or we've got Jackdaw Carlo or somebody who can explain when we're too daft to realise what London actually wants.
I like that one, Jackdaw Carlo. I haven't heard that one before.
Well, that and Stuart's comment about English exceptionalism. Jonathan Cook's written a good piece on the subject that seems to have been forgotten. Brexit. Now, our Brexit negotiations are apparently continuing, but the thrust of the Jonathan Cook piece is really, it is about exceptionalism. The EU hasn't had anything meaningful. Fishing in particular, there is no legal document being produced by the UK saying what they want. He also points out that the position as a third country, sovereign country, is only applied when it suits. So the UK wants to be a sovereign country about fishing, but it thinks because it's an ex-member, it has rights similar to a member.
Yeah, and particularly when it comes to things like the financial services market that they are desperate to play a massive part in.
Well, apparently the EU is absolutely livid. They just don't think they're taking it seriously. And all this is going under the radar. Now, remember, we've only got the opportunity to extend till the end of June, I think it is. Is it June or July?
Yeah, it's June, and then we go.
And then we're definitely
no deal at the end of the year.
We're definitely out on the 31st.
I don't think there's any ifs or any buts about it. It's quite clear that the government, the Johnson government, or the Johnson gang, as I prefer to call them, have got no plans to do anything other than bump out straight out of the EU without a deal.
Well, yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
The other thing about the article that caught my eye was this idea that, do you remember when the May government was insisting they wanted an overarching one deal for everything?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that position seems to have changed now. They want separate deals. They want a Canada-style deal for one area. They want a Japan-style deal for another area. They want a Norway-style deal for yet another area.
Is that just to guarantee that they get no deal?
Well, they seem to want a lot of little agreements instead of one overarching agreement, which was the original position of the Brexiteers.
So they've
continually changed.
Well, look, okay, here's a big question. Here's the big question that nobody's asking, but I've got to ask it. If we do bump out with no deal, and it's, I mean, if I was a bookie, I'd say almost certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not a person, but who's going to be particularly angry? Is that the City of London? Is it the hedge fund people? Somebody's
Well,
going to.
I think the City of London will have issues, mate, because if it's a no deal scenario, I'm afraid that France and Germany will ensure that the City of London takes a massive hit. But the hedge funds wouldn't care. They've hedged either way, so they'll make a wedge regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual idea that any major UK companies will have access, any meaningful access to the financial markets of Europe will go up in flames early July as soon as it becomes clear we're having a no deal. And those companies will be toiling.
Most of them, the exchequers, what will feel the hit, because most of them have already created footholds in Europe. Dublin, Frankfurt, Paris, all offering fantastic deals to move there.
Mm-hmm.
So the City of London will just, although...
No, there's also, sorry, I was just going to go quickly into the thing that the massive borrowing that the United Kingdom is doing to get through the virus, it kind of makes us a really sugary partner for Europe. I know they've created, 540 billion liquidity, but they can do that because there are 27 nations here, and Germany basically is strong enough to create that on its own if need be. We're not in that position. And again, it comes down to this exceptionalism thing that we go on and on about the UK having the 5th biggest economy, but my Christ, our economy is on a sugary peg. And if all world economies tank, the UK will take one of the biggest hits because we're on the sugariest peg in Europe.
Is it not?
We're not kicking the arse of Greece, but the problem is Greece have a safety net we don't have.
Are we not kind of oscillating between 5th and 6th at the moment?
Aye, because the French have overtaken us, but we're not allowed to admit that the French have overtaken us. Similar to the Americans who insist that China will never overtake them, although it's an absolute guaranteed certainty that China will overtake them this decade.
That's an interesting one. I love these people that go on about how much debt America has with China and fail to mention that debt's a dollar debt.
Mm-hmm.
So, in fact, it's part of the American economy, not the Chinese economy. And I always have a wee chuckle to myself about that. Well, I just thought it was maybe worth keeping Brexit on the horizon because it's not long now. It's 2 months away.
We're at the start of May, and at the end of next month, if nothing changes, then we will know that we are falling out of Europe on the 31st of December with no deal. And nobody, not even Boris Johnson, Richard Tice, even that clown that runs Weatherspoon's Boozers, none of them advocated no deal, and none of them said that no deal would be anything other than a disaster. And yet they're all pushing for it now.
Do you think he'll go ahead and open his Weatherspoons regardless of what he's been told to do?
I think he'll try, but I wouldn't mind betting that depends on how many shares he still holds in Weatherspoons, mate. There's got to be a considerable amount of shareholders in Weatherspoons that are thinking to themselves, this boy's bad news. Is there a way we can get rid of him? Pay him off in some way?
Oh, that's a good point. I did actually catch a wee bit of TV this morning, not a lot. And it was a diary by a sergeant of the police in Devon and Cornwall. And he was going around and trying to be perfectly reasonable to people in the streets. But as he's saying, there's all these people that are homeless that they're not going to harass because they don't have a home, and they're not going to harass them and tell them to get off the streets. But there's an awful lot of people just taking the piss. Chancers, JKs, junkies, and they're all hanging about together and causing trouble. And they're very high profile now because there's nobody else out there on the streets. And they're having to deal with that. Now, I would take that as a bellwether for where things are going.
Well, I think as well, a lot of people who had nowhere else to go may well have moved to Devon and Cornwall just on the basis that Devon and Cornwall is now coming into a nice part of the year. You know, the weather's decent, the environment's decent. There's plenty of countryside for them to find themselves a wee copse to live in for the next wee while.
Jimmy, I've got to confess, you see, when I was a young man, I hitchhiked down to St Ives, and I was homeless in St Ives for the summer. I thought, if I'm going to be homeless, I might as well be in St Ives.
I didn't blame you, mate. It's
I
glorious.
always knew there was something dodgy about you, Stuart.
Oh, there's things that you don't know yet.
Too much cider and scones in his misspent youth.
I tell you what, I was actually I was coveting the street sweeper's job in St Ives. I want that job, I said.
Aye, wouldn't be a bad number.
Oh, well. Okay, Brexit finished with. We need to mention test.
Test, aye.
Both the Downing Street presser and the already having taken place Nicholas Sturgeon press conference today will be about testing. I was particularly impressed with Nicola today. She did that SNP thing of promising 3.5 and delivering 8,000 tests, which I thought was a nice wee trick. Stuart, we'll let you wax lyrical on this one.
I'll try not to go on too long. The very first thing I've got to say is just to remind people that they don't have test, and isolate in England. They don't have privatised care homes in England. They have dispersed care homes in England. They don't do test, and isolate. They do something called test. No idea what it means. You'll need to enlighten me. But apparently, the government here is going to, I'm not even going to start on the details. God, was she into the statistics? Apparently, not only are they going to be testing everybody that wants a personal test, they're also starting sample testing for antibodies, which apparently works. If you test 500 people, you can tell roughly where there's loads of people in Lothian got it, and there's none in the Outer Hebrides. I mean, I was fascinated. But the best bit of all about the whole presser was she was asked by the hyenas of the Scottish press quite a few leading questions, trying to identify a split between her and Boris, and she was waiting for them. I'll just give you one or two examples. Where did she go really for? The Telegraph, Simon Johnson. She says he wanted to know what her opinion was about Boris Johnson saying that we'd passed the peak. The First Minister, first of all, she said was, "Well, I think I'll explain this in my own words." And after that, you knew the knife was going straight in. And then somebody else tried to have a go about the care home situation. And they were having none of that either. Was it Jean Freeman, the health secretary? She says, we told them, basically, infection prevention control is what they should have been applying right from the start. Did they? Well, obviously not. And I think one last thing. Opportunity for change. Oh, that was a good one as well. She wasn't asked about that, but somewhere in her answer she said, yes, when we come out of this coronavirus emergency, it will be an opportunity for a big change.
It was the question about whether she agreed with Boris Johnson not using an austerity strategy.
Oh, that's right.
Having said he didn't. But Jean Freeman was particularly good today because not only did she point out that the advice had been given about isolation, but she then finished it off by saying, and this is what we have offered to help them follow the strategy that's recommended, and then listed the various things that the Scottish government had put in place. I like the strength they're having on this. Yesterday, I think it was, we didn't know the percentages for private and council care homes. 84% of care homes in Scotland are private care homes.
Right. So that gives us, it then begs the question why people like ITV Border and like STV are taking quite so many questions that are fed to them by Care Scotland, which is the parent group, or sorry, the organisation which helps private care homes lobby the Scottish Government.
Because it's the kind of item that's a double hit. Mm-hmm. If the Scottish Government interfere, in private care homes, they can criticise that. If the Scottish government don't interfere, i.e. don't support them, they can criticise that.
Yeah, well, there was particularly the thing by STV. I'm sure it was STV. I'm sure it was Graham Gubbins actually for STV the day, who went with a Care Scotland question. And Jean Freeman kind of indicated, although she didn't come out and say it, that Care Scotland are saying one thing to STV and the journalists and saying something completely different to the Scottish government when they get across a table from them. When they have their meetings, they aren't bringing up these problems. I wonder why that is.
I think it's going to be interesting when this comes out in the wash, because this offer of extra staff, are the care homes expected to pay their wages, or is NHS Scotland expected to pay their wages? These things are going to become important about how much of the help is actually being utilised.
Yes,
by
and
the
how much?
care homes.
Aye, because mate, only yesterday we had your pal Kilgour with his gimpy Reg Holdsworth glasses on again, appearing on both STV and Reporting Scotland. He's got an awfully big platform. He's worse than Bertie Armstrong of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation. They have him on every 5 minutes.
Well, the other thing that I noticed was, I think it was no, it wasn't. I think it was Nicholas Sturgeon, said that they're sending teams in to help. Mm-hmm. Now, those teams will be going in and they'll be going, well, I'm sorry, you're failing on X, Y, Z. You need to implement A, B, and C. And that'll be written down somewhere. So at the end of this, there will be ammunition to be thrown at private care home providers.
Oh, absolutely. And there should be, mate. There should be, because you've been saying it for long enough. Why are they begging for PPE? Why did they not go out and buy it themselves? Because they clearly had a rank stockpile. I mean, when we had Jean Freeman yesterday saying that every care home in Scotland had got a week's supply, every single one. And then you've got daft Edward Mountain praising the local landowner and the local landed gentry because they'd managed to get a few thousand masks to hand to some care home in Inverness. And I'm like, did that care home in Inverness particularly need them at this time, Mr. Mountain? Because he just got a wedge of stuff.
Well, the question you probably should have been asking is, whose land is it built on and how much money do you make out of it, Mr. Mountain?
And Edward Mountain, he's one of these millionaire landowners, isn't he? By the way, I thought the final question at the presser was... that
was a bit of an outlier.
Oh, it was wonderful. From I don't know the guy's name, but it was from the Daily Business. And the boy obviously thought he'd got a wonderful question because it came out as quite a surprise, because apparently some papers, it means legal documents, have been laid for a judicial review because it'll be unionists. Or apparently Scotland has not been so good to business as in the rest of the UK. And as the First Minister said, well, we've more than matched the money. We spent more money on business in Scotland than we got from London. And lots of businesses in Scotland, if we were to match England, lots of businesses in Scotland wouldn't get any money at all.
We wouldn't have got any funding, exactly. Again, it's coming back to this daft thing where Tories and unionists feel that the Scottish government should have taken the 2.3 billion that we were handed. I mean, they always make it sound as if we're getting handed a free wedge of money here. It's our own money in the first place. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not being raised.
We'll be paying for the borrowing.
But there's also that thing that we should spend it in exactly the same way as London do. No, there's a reason that Scotland won't do that, because they don't vote for Conservative governments.
The way that question should have been phrased was, why aren't you supporting big business to the extent that it's being supported down south?
Oh, you're not allowed to mention that most of the money's going to go to big business, Norrie. That's not fair. I'm
pretty sure in the wash, when this comes out, that you'll find that the Scottish government has concentrated on small and medium-sized businesses.
Well, I've seen a report that says, there was an issue about some of this business support money going to businesses that are they don't pay any tax. They're based in offshore tax havens. Apparently, there's loads of it already gone to these people. Why on earth are they paying it? Other countries aren't.
Well, it's not as black and white as that, Stuart. Where the owners and the management put their profits to avoid tax is not really the question. The question is, how many jobs is it supporting?
Oh, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough, obviously.
So
I was interested.
there's
Sorry,
a
mate.
bit of me that kind of thinks Virgin should get money so that pilots and air hostesses and ground crew and baggage handlers can be furloughed. That's my view on it.
I think Virgin
Shut
maybe
yous
should
up,
get money.
eh?
No, I think Virgin maybe should get money, mate. But I think we should just take a percentage. Richard Branson holds 51% of it. Why don't we just take his 51% off him?
Mm.
I think there is an argument if they don't pay tax in the UK, it's a complication, but I do think there is an argument that an agreement has to be signed saying you will pay your tax in the UK from now on.
Well, there's
Whether
got to be
that'll ever
strings.
stand up.
There's got to be
in
strings of some
court.
sort, because there weren't strings in 2008, and we all seen where that led to. The money got siphoned off, and the banks and the shareholders of the banks were the ones that profited. In fact,
Well,
they
they get
made
it.
money.
They
They made
made-
money from
Oh, of
collapsing the
course.
economy.
They made money, exactly.
I was
I'd like,
interested, guys, with Nicholas Sturgeon hinting. Now, it was only a hint, but I do hope that more of this comes out over the next few days, that her own scientific committee was set up because she didn't have access to scrutinise Sage. She certainly hinted at that. She wasn't getting to ask Sage the questions that she wanted to, and that's why she set up. Now, remember, it was a much derided scientific committee when she set it up. I've not heard the Tories or Willie Rennie babbling on about them for the last couple of weeks when they've realised that the evidence coming out of that committee has actually been bloody useful. But at the time, slated her setting that up.
My understanding of the SAGE setup is that the devolved administrations are observers, so they can't ask questions.
Aye, which is no use at a scientific committee. What's the use of the First Minister of Scotland listening to Sage and not being able to question them? That is ludicrous.
Well, it's that kind of thing, you know. I mean, my question would be, should Cornwall have its own committee? Because
Cornwall
the setup
can
in
do what it likes,
Cornwall.
mate. They've clearly got no taste, so let Stuart in when he was happy.
Look,
well, my point is, Cornwall is very different to London.
It is.
Yeah,
you know.
Look,
So,
can we stick to just? I've got a little bit of useful stuff to stick into this Sage topic. One of the First Minister's favourite baiters, a hyena that really is, he's trouble. I mean, Severin Carrell, he wasn't even there, but she brought him up, named him, and stuck the knife into him.
I think she referred to a question he'd asked earlier in the week.
Well, that's one way to bring people up.
She didn't stab him so much as smother him with a pillow.
Stuart, you're going to have to start describing the gentlemen and ladies of the press with some other term, mate. There's hyenas all over the country that are not going to be listening to us, but their paws over their lugs because they just get a bad press every day.
Oh, my green screen's gone
You'll call them a
again.
jackal or a African hunting dog or something. Just
actually, it was interesting. It was an interesting Twitter this morning from Ian McWhirter, who likes to he likes to sit on the fence, but we know where his heart lies. But he sits on the fence for the money, I think. And he didn't like some tweets because people were describing the opposition as Yuns, and I must admit that more and more that term is getting used. YOONS. He didn't like that.
Well,
but do you rather me call them that, Jimmy, instead of hyenas?
Well, my thoughts on this one is they do what the Cybernats did. They own it. Get themselves badges made up with union on it. If they're so proud of their union, what are they scared of? Bugger them.
A very good point.
So somebody will come up with a better epithet than that at some point.
Well, there's plenty, but you can't write them in newspapers or say them on TV news programmes, can you?
You mean like fag on Facebook?
Aye, I got a 3-day ban for describing a packet of cigarettes as fags, which still annoys me.
I got a row for asking. I did get suspended, but I asked for help on Facebook yesterday because I've got one plant that desperately needs repotted. I don't have any pot plants. I'm not going to go into there's no garden centres to go to. I'm not going to go into Asda or anything just to get a bloody pot plant and risk my health. And so I asked for help. Facebook popped up and said, "Oh, your help doesn't qualify."
But you called it a pot plant.
I don't know whether it was a pot plant. Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
No, okay, well,
Sure, you of all people should have thought of that.
No, but you were asking for help through their COVID virus helpline.
No, I didn't. I just asked for help. I just
but
asked for. They steered it into a COVID virus helpline. All I did was ask for help for my pot plant.
Yeah, but that's the only helpline that Facebook have at the moment is the COVID virus helpline, unless you're looking for settings help or something
All
like
right,
that.
I got scalped for that anyway.
Okay. Right, guys. Anything else out of the presser that particularly impressed you?
Not particularly, no.
We've had fun already.
I have to say, when she went, oh, and by the way, remember that 3,500 figure? Well, that's 4,300. I've got to underline this. Oh, and there is the UK government scheme, which gives us another 4,000. And you could hear, I could hear in my head, all the press just ripping up the questions on testing. Rip, rip, rip. It was an absolute masterstroke.
Perhaps that's why she left it till today, not even. They were all choking to ask questions yesterday about testing. She wanted to do it the day, one, because even if the government in London meets their target, they ain't going to surpass it in the way that the SNP have up here. And two, the anticipation of slapping down all these jackals and bobbags that are the Scottish press must have been brilliant last night. She must have had her wee couple of porks before she went to her pit last night, looking forward to it.
Did anybody else notice that the figures, the 8,400 capacity is 8.4% of the 100,000 capacity? Now, where does that figure come from?
It rings a couple of bells, doesn't it?
And it will be
brilliant.
And it will be 12%, but with another couple of weeks. So there you
go. My green screen's gone mad. Okay, guys. Anybody got funny to finish?
Well, it's not funny so much, but I would like to point out, of course, that the Survation polling company did a poll, and they asked for who had the most, confidence. They asked whoever they asked, did the people have confidence in what? BBC, newspapers, and the NHS came top of the list with 80%. And do you know what came second? Scottish Government.
I do, but I'll let you announce it.
Scottish Government, 70% confidence.
Well, after the last 2 days, I now understand why all the big papers that weren't going to the Nicholas Sturgeon press conferences in the beginning, the Guardians of this world, the Express even, who just weren't attending, they're all there. The FT was there today.
Yeah, take a look at Nicola's Twitter feed, mate. The amount of English people who are praising her and saying, oh my God, if we only had a leader down here who would be concise and truthful with us, things would be very different.
Did you watch the Prime Minister yesterday?
I was kind of surprised he didn't wear slingbacks and pearl earrings, mate, because he was choking to be Nicola yesterday. He desperately tried to have a wee bit of her delivery, along with his boisterous Bobag Boris pitch.
That gap with him being away and the stand-ins with, Priti Patel not included, but the stand-ins look better than he does.
Peter Bell done a brilliant piece this morning about it, mate. Honestly, if you've not seen it yet, treat yourself. Make a cup of tea after this and read Peter Bell's piece about it. It's hilariously funny in bits, and in other bits, it's so biting. Oh, it's superb.
Well, he stumbled and waxed illogical his whole way through it. Absolutely dreadful.
He was, as I say, mate, he was desperately. He's been to Nicola classes. That's where Dominic's had him off for an extra few days. Just try and say a few things in a forceful but thoughtful manner, and he can't do it. It's
It
like
doesn't have
watching
the
Donald.
gravitas.
Aye, mate. It's like watching Donald Trump try to juggle 2 bottles of domestos and catch a fucking fish in your mouth at the same time.
Stuart,
No, I'm just impressed. I've got nothing
you
else to say.
want to leave with the juggling Donald Trump and that big salmon. It's about to slap him in the face.
Well, it would be a salmon as well, eh?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, we're having a date off tomorrow, are we?
Well, because you two are speaking to the union, we've got to have a rest day every week, apparently.
No, right, that works for me.
As the employer of last resort, I'm not happy about this getting letters for the union telling me to give you a day off nonsense.
That means I can hit the rum and cider cocktails tonight then.
Are you not doing a garden shed, gardener's arms tomorrow?
No. I got bumped, mate. They were all partying last night, so they're all suffering things today.
All right, okay.
Well, the sun's out again.
I might go for a wee donder, actually. I was thinking, first day of May, it's no much use me trying to wash my face in the morning dew, and it's a bit late, but let's be honest, you can't polish a turd. But I think I might go for a wee wander.
We've been missing your turn of phrase, Jimmy.
On those two very, I don't really want pictures of that in my head moments, we'll call it a day. Thank you, Stuart Lockhead, Jimmy Hutton. I'm Norris Stewart. Thanks for watching or listening, folks. And we'll catch you on Sunday. Unless, of course, something dramatic happens. I mean, if Boris maybe gets the plague this time, I don't know. Anyway, cheers for now, folks.